evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Beer Blather 281, Seditious Morons. The shoe finally dropped. Director of National Intelligence Gabbard released declassified documents proving that everything we've been saying for 8 years is true. Barack Hussein Obama, the most corrupt person to occupy the White House in the country's history, during 8 dismal years, was indeed conducting an operation from the Oval Office and involving our intelligence services with the purpose of stopping Donald J. Trump on his tracks and, when that failed, topple his fledgling presidency. These seditious morons left enough fingerprints for us to collect and put together a picture by December of 2017. Almost immediately, our social media accounts were shadow banned, and soon we both had our accounts suspended. We were swatted, demonetized, and debanked. For these past 6 years, we stuck through it all and kept a window into social media at great expense and with the help of loyal followers. The seditious morons who went after Trump and succeeded in planting a corrupt potato in the Oval Office, they could control. To be fair, most of the time it was a question of controlling just the outer pen, and are still pulling the strings of pro-terrorist demonstrations across the country and organizing domestic terrorist units to go after law enforcement agents in ambushes from New York to California. The children of Bill Ayers and Joanne Byron, she likes Asata Shakur better, have brought the 70s back on the backs of a corrupt clan that sold the country for 30 coins, a crack pipe, and some cheap horse. There is a 5-year statute of limitation for sedition, but it starts counting after the sedition ends. It hasn't. Even today, corrupt actors spread disinformation through the same media channels they controlled all along. And the money flows through organizations set up and controlled by Obama and the Clintons, using the same co-conspirators to destabilize, in their pea-brains, febrile delusions, topple the legitimate government of the U.S., upend our laws, and fundamentally change America into a collectivist dystopia. There is no statute of limitations of treason for treason, though. It is time that information be sent to the DOJ that the seditious morons that for 8 years cost this country far too much blood and treasure be brought to justice. It is imperative that justice be done to dissuade tomorrow's miscreants. Anything else? It's a waste of time. This is Sol Montes Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information from my golden cage in Southeast Florida. And right here, to my left, is Thomas Victor, the only living expert in World War I flamethrowers and so many more things I couldn't list them if my life depended on it. That one. That's the guy. The guy with the white beard. Oh, shit, I have another one. That wouldn't work. And we're both ready to waste our time. Well, for a few hours, as long as you'll have us. And without further ado, congratulations, Thomas. It turns out we weren't fucking crazy after all.
No.
We are, but that's a different issue.
Oh, it's really funny. I saw something before we came on the air, and you know that Stephen Colbert's show is getting canceled because it costs
The Colbert salute.
Well, it costs the network $40 million a year.
Yeah.
So, there's no point in keeping him around. And the Writers Guild of America said that it was a bribe to Trump.
Yes.
I was trying to figure that out. What does that mean?
Colbert is so influential, and his dictums, by the way, I thought he was dead. I haven't seen this asshole since his sister ran for Congress in North Carolina. But apparently, they think he's so influential that Trump is afraid that he may say caca on CBS. So, in order to placate Trump, after having to settle for $60 billion for the 60-minute, uh, they say edit, I say contribution in kind to the Cacala campaign, to congratulate themselves with Trump. And so that it wouldn't be 50 million, they got rid of this wonderful oracle of New Jersey.
Yeah, but that's not a bribe.
Bullshit.
That's not a bribe. That's not the definition of a bribe.
Well, the bribe was the head of this guy on a platter. They're stupid.
Yeah. But hold on. A bribe is when you give somebody something to make them do something, and they bribe Trump to do what?
Yes. To not do.
Well, okay, that's not a bribe. That's something else. That's
bullshit.
Well, I mean, just the whole thing is we're at this weird point now where people don't know the meanings of words and they're okay, here in California, there were like 5 hoax ICE stories in a row. One was a mother was kidnapped, and
yes.
it was debunked in a matter of hours. Another was
Homeland Security put the information up in 2 seconds.
Another was a man crying that at a 5th grade graduation, which I didn't know that 5th graders had graduation ceremonies.
It's amazing.
ICE raided it, and the parents ran in all directions, and the kiddies were screaming, and this man was crying, saying, "This is what we voted for." And the school district issued a statement saying this didn't happen. So it's really, really, really bizarre that at a time, okay, the Tulsi Gabbard's release of the information on the Russia hoax. The Russia hoax was stupid. The Russia hoax, the report written by the British ex-MI6 agent was written not by anyone who had anything to do with real spying. It didn't read at all like a report written by a real spook, and it didn't. It's like, okay, the Wall Street Journal printed some letter or letters that Trump and Epstein were writing to each other, saying something along the lines of, make sure to keep our blessed secrets, and just weird ass stuff that it bears no resemblance to the real. This is worse
than the Killian papers.
It bears no resemblance to the real Trump. And I don't know. It's so weird that if all of this stuff has an impact, that's not on the Wall Street Journal or Obama or whomever. That's on us. That's on the American people for letting it sway our opinion.
I believe the Russia hoax is in the same category. I always said, and you and I discussed a gazillion times, it was so sophomoric, it was so stupid that I couldn't understand why whoever the fuck walked into a room with that shit wasn't laughed out of the room within 2 seconds. How can anybody take this crap seriously? And they pretended to take it seriously. And they kept advancing the story, and a shit ton of people still believe it. I was talking to a Brazilian friend today, and he was telling me, but didn't he do that? And I explained it to him, and he went, oh shit. But it's like they've been constantly bombarded, and they still are. You should see the Spanish-speaking TV stations in this country. They're worse than their Mexican counterparts. They're shit. They're propaganda for the mentally impaired. And they keep repeating it. It's insane.
Well, also, I mean, okay, the whole Epstein thing. I heard somebody on the radio saying that Trump was hysterical with rage over the Epstein story because it
Oh,
wouldn't die, and it was
yep.
preventing the press from reporting on all of Trump's victories. And it's like, okay, since when would the press report on Trump's victories? That's
Yep.
not going to happen anyway. So,
Ironically, the same friend raised the same issue, and that's what I said. I said, "Well, who the fuck? When did the press report something good Trump had done?"
yeah, no, as you were pointing out yesterday, Trump has achieved more in the past 3 months than anybody has achieved in the past 30 years.
Yes,
We have the combination of legislation and Supreme Court victories that, they're earth shattering. And as of yet, the Epstein crap isn't affecting his poll numbers. Not that poll numbers are the be all and end all, but the whole notion of, okay, I'd never seen Epstein speak until a few days ago. I watched a deposition, and now I understand better than ever. There was no chance in the world that this guy was a Mossad agent, and there was no chance in the world that any of the rich and famous, the one percenters, the elite, would trust this guy to traffic them and underage girls. This guy came across like he had about an 85 IQ, and he really, really, really. I saw an interview with a princess, a European princess. She has one of these weirdo names like Sturm und von
oh,
Hump und Praxis, and she speaks English with a perfect American accent. And she
yes.
said, I despised Epstein. And the interviewer said, why? And she said, because he came across as just a Goomba from Queens. And Donald Trump is from Queens. He doesn't come across as a Goomba. You see Trump in an interview, and automatically his intelligence rings out. Epstein came across as a dummy. He was taking the fifth on everything in this deposition, and they were asking him about his penis. Is it true you have an egg-shaped penis? And
Thicker at the bottom, thinner at the front.
okay, this is beyond Monty Python. I don't even know what you would call a deposition like this. So he gets up and he walks to the door. Nobody tells him to stop. Then he comes and he sits back down again. So he accomplished nothing with this. He almost stomped out. And then he came and sat. He kept saying he had the weirdest voice. He had this really unimpressive tenor voice. And he was saying, I'd really like to answer that question, but I've been advised by my lawyers not to. And I was just thinking, before I heard Epstein speak, all I saw were photos of him, these enigmatic, smirking photos. And so he came across as this mysterious character. Once you hear him speak and you watch him behave, you understand that there is absolutely no way the Mossad would have hired him, and there was absolutely no way that anybody would have trusted him with their secrets. He was he made money for people. He made money for people, and he had lots of connections, and all those people are constantly looking for connections. So if they know that Epstein can connect them to somebody else, they'll hold their nose and go through Epstein to be connected to somebody else. And the price they have to pay is going to a party thrown by Epstein and Maxwell. But there's absolutely no way in the world that anybody would trust this guy with secrets that could throw them in jail for the rest of their lives. There is no Epstein client list. Epstein had no dirt on anybody. I don't think he was smart enough to gather dirt on people. I read that Ghislaine Maxwell basically handled everything. Like, he was the money guy. He made the investments and got the clients, and she handled everything else. And I've seen her speak. I've seen interviews with her. She's not an idiot. Epstein was an idiot. Epstein really, really comes across as a dummy, as a savant.
A complete moron. And by the way, I think it was Gloria Thurndon Taxis
Yes.
that you were referring to. She's a princess, and she is, by the way, a very active anti-abortion activist, which I can't even imagine why anybody would even ask her about Epstein.
Well, she's a magnificently wealthy princess, and she
and a very conservative anti-abortion princess.
Well, this is the thing that just her reaction to him, that reaction would be the reaction. I mean, people need to understand. Okay, I worked for 10 years in Hollywood. I wasn't up in the 1% of all, or the at 0.5% of all human beings in terms of wealth and power. But those people all hang out with each other, and they all mingle with each other because they don't like the hoi polloi, because the hoi polloi are too impressed with them.
Yes.
If you go somewhere, and everywhere you go, there's people running up to you going, "Oh my God, I love you, I love you," and they don't get that from their peers. So the people who would have anything to do with Epstein in terms of him making money for them, the only other people they hang out is with his princesses and board directors and old money and all of that, because they can be themselves around these people. These other people know what it's like to live that sort of life.
Yeah.
And Epstein was also seen as what's the term? A new money parvenu,
a social climber.
He was a social climber.
He was the first person they abandoned at the restaurant by himself.
Mm.
But anyway, and while we're talking about this little shit, what do Dick Durbin, Bernie Sanders, Pencil Neck Schiff, Jeffries, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have in common other than being stupid?
They're all repulsive.
Yeah, well, in this past week, they all have been calling for the release of the Epstein list. Even Nancy Pelosi jumped into the game. Now, why would Democrat senators, congressmen, mayors, and have-beens all of a sudden find religion and come out demanding transparency in government and the release of the Epstein list?
Well, because they think it's hurting Trump.
And because it is a very useful distraction. Let's face it. When people talk about that shit, they don't talk about the advances in diplomacy, the advances in the economy. For the first time in June, for the very first fucking time in 30 years, our government run a fiscal surplus.
Mm-hmm.
If you recall, all of these fucking morons were telling you that Trump was going to explode the deficit
Mm-hmm.
and send the country into bankruptcy, and all of a sudden, we had a 26 billion surplus. Oops, what happened there? And that is taking into consideration that tariffs have already been collected since April. But we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about the fact that tariffs did not bring the end of the stock market and the world as we know it. That it did not break the kitty, and all of a sudden we have massive deficits, like we did with saying, "Oh well, Biden." No, we cannot talk about it. We have to talk about the size and shape of Epstein's ding dong.
Well, also, okay, I saw a lawyer on CNN, and he said if there was any dirt on Trump with regard to Epstein, the Democrats would have released it years ago. You know.
God, no question about that.
Yeah. So
it would have been another 3 lawsuits.
And it's easy to see why the Democrats are doing this. The reason our side are doing this, our side, people on our side, allegedly are doing this, is because they have
claim to be on our side,
right? Because they have an unhealthy interest in sex with minor girls. That's it. They're titillated. They want to know all the dirty details. Preferably, they would like to see video. I mean, this is it.
Yeah. I'm purely out of a journalistic interest.
Yeah. No. If Jack Posobiec got his hands on 10 hours of video of rich and wealthy having sex with 14-year-olds, he'd watch every second of it, and he would say exactly that. I just did it as a journalistic, endeavor. And
please leave. I need to watch it again.
The thing is that this is it's too typical. It's very typical of our side, the uptight side, that the Jimmy Swaggart, the guy who I never saw Jimmy Swaggart preach until I watched the documentary about him, and he was up there talking about, nasty, dirty, filthy, it was all about sex. All his sermons were about sex, and what he gets caught with prostitutes multiple times. And it's the same thing on our side, the ones who talk about their own morality in regard to all of this. You can bet they've got some major skeletons in their closets. And okay, a phone company said that from 2016 to 2019, fewer than 200 people went to Epstein Island, and that includes all the staff. Because he had a mansion with a huge staff. He had aircraft going in. I read somewhere that of the women who claimed to have been trafficked, they said there was fewer than 20 offenders who they were trafficked to. So if those people can be found and prosecuted, fine. But it's not this giant vampiristic cabal that is running the world. Epstein
and frankly, the last time there was any of that activity, there was like in 2005. The statute of limitations applied a decade ago.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do there. You find an asshole who was screwing a 14-year-old, and you can do nothing about it.
And I highly doubt that people with everything. Okay, you saw there was a concert, and some idiot CEO and his idiot human resources officer were caught on the camera by the band. And
what a buffoon!
his company, he's resigned. She's going to resign. His wife is going to divorce him and take half of everything.
It's just going to take everything.
Well, this is the thing that he's an idiot.
By the way, did you see the wife?
Uh-huh.
Did you see the human resources wench?
Uh-huh.
Is that fucking asshole blind on top of being stupid?
Well, from what I gathered, just from looking at okay, both of them were constantly on TV. And from what I gathered from listening to him and listening to her, this was all her doing. He was like an idiot puppy just going, okay. And, yeah, and she you could tell from the video that she's like a gym bunny, and she just comes across as a certain type of person who does these sorts of things. And
not the wife, the wench.
Exactly, the human resources. They called her on her. They didn't call her a human resources. They called her a people something or other. It was just like people. It was just everything was retarded, and so this guy's going to lose everything.
Good.
The sort of people who we're being told would have used Epstein to procure them underage girls, they're not this guy. Most of them come from old money. And despite what people think about old money, generally speaking, people who inherit old money, they're trained and raised from childhood on how to handle old money and how to keep
how to behave in private and in public.
Exactly. And so these people who you could equate this guy who's now an ex-CEO, you could equate him with a rock star who was raised in a slum and then was eventually handed millions of dollars and went crazy. But the old European money and the old American money, the notion that, I mean, of course there are.
You're not going to find any of them smooching in public, even with their wives.
And they're not going to go to Epstein Island. They're not going to go to Epstein Island. They're going to meet Epstein and they're going to turn to each other and they're going to go, "Oh, good Lord."
Well, I'm going to my mansion in Antigua. Oh, why don't you stop by for a couple of drinks on my island? It could happen, but that's it.
Well, Epstein was a money maker.
Richard Branson has had an island there which he bought for next to nothing that he used. He used himself, to be sure, but he also used as a marketing tool for Virgin Atlantic, and people could win a weekend on Richard's Island, in raffles on the plane and all that jazz. I'm sure he had his parties, and I'm sure that there were always girls fluttering about him, because that was his life. The biggest, but sometimes I think they buy the island to get away from the fluttering girls.
Also, Branson was marketing a product. He was marketing a brand.
Yes.
Epstein was his own product.
He was marketing himself.
Yep.
The people. I remember when I was in Wall Street. I was hired as a consultant to the CEO of a brokerage house, and he tells me, before we do anything, get your ass over to Miami. We need to do some things there. What do we need to do? We're going to try to close and get an account from the Bank of Andorra because this brokerage house dealt primarily with institutions, not with retail. So I go to Miami, we pass a suite at the Hyatt in downtown, and puts me up in a lovely one-bedroom suite. And tomorrow, 9 a.m., we need to go. I'll meet you in the lobby. I get down there at 9 a.m. sharp, dressed to the nines, with a impressive bespoke suit and her best tie and all that just because I'm going to meet with the president of the Bank of Bloby. And he looks at me like he had just stepped on dog shit.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" I said, "Holy shit, why? What did I do wrong?" He says, "Why are you dressed like a penguin?" I said, "We're going to meet with the CEO. We dress like this. It's the custom." "No, that's the custom for the poor schmucks who deal with the hoi polloi and have to impress morons with their suits. You don't give a shit. You don't need to impress anybody because you are it. So go back to your room and come back down here with a fucking short, sandals, and a Hawaiian shirt." So I did. And we went to the Capitol Grill on Brickell on a Hawaiian shirt with sandals, and we closed and we got the account. And he was absolutely right. Some people do some things because they need to prove through their suit, through their house, through their car, that they are successful. Everybody in the finance industry does that, from the branch manager to the lowliest financial advisor. But if you're really it, you don't need to do this shit. Epstein did a lot of the stuff he did because he had it in his mind that to attract success, he had to look successful according to the idea of success of a plebeian. And that's what he did. And that's what his island was. And that's what his mansion in New York was.
I saw a YouTube video that showed a blonde young woman sitting in a car, and she said, "I make $300,000. I'm 23. I make $300,000, and I own a Ferrari." And then the video switched over to another woman. She said, "I'm 23, and I can imitate a platypus." And then she went, "Nyah, nyah, nyah, nyah." And I sure like the second 23-year-old much better than I like the first one.
Absolutely. The first one is trying too hard to impress.
Yeah. And not impressing at all. I mean, just.
No. And I cannot tell you the amount of clients of mine and friends of mine, millionaires 100 times over, who would ask me to dinner and would take me to a fucking cafeteria on Miracle Mile, and they were wearing polyester jackets. They could care less.
Well, that's the thing. And, we're in a really interesting era. It's a great era, actually. By the time the second Trump administration is through, we're barely going to recognize this country. And you have his opponents doing what they've always done. I remember when the governor was recalled here, Gray Davis, Michael Moore went on the David Letterman show, and he said he was recalled because he wasn't leftist enough.
Mm-hmm.
And So they've finally gotten to the point where they're about as leftist as they could possibly be. I heard Mamdani. There was a clip of Mamdani saying that he wanted to abolish private property.
Yes, he did. There's not only one tape. There are several instances where he says that the problem is private property. We need to abolish private property. He's revived that wish of Bill de Blasio of expropriating land in New York to build low-income housing. Apparently, he wants to turn Park Avenue into a project.
Right, and
that's going to work.
Think of all these wealthy, uber wealthy entertainers who are in love with Mamdani, and it's like he's saying he wants to take away everything you own. Does that not occur to you?
It doesn't register. It doesn't register for these fucks.
Here in California, in Pacific Palisades, the only building that's being done right now is projects. They have expropriated land and they're building projects in Pacific Palisades.
That's all there's going to be there.
It's really amazing.
Yeah. And next is Brentwood, because, once Pacific Palisades is the new Chicago project on the sea, the next step is Brentwood.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? They deserve it.
Yeah,
all of these virtue signaling fucking morons who are about to lose their dream houses and neighborhood to nothing, to a big money sucking corruption scheme, because that's what the projects are. They're not building projects because they want houses for the poor. Come on, they lost 25 billion. They don't know where the fuck they put them. That would have been enough to resolve that problem permanently. They don't care about that. But if you have a 500 million construction project, which with California overruns will probably go to close to $1 billion, can you imagine how many kickbacks we're talking about?
Thousands.
What is it? Like 20% is going into Gruesom's pockets?
Mm-hmm. And also Mayor Bass and
then the rest of them, everybody gets their little piece of the action here. So
on my main street,
they don't give a rat's ass.
On my main street,
if anybody lives there.
On my main street, this used to be where they used to film a lot of movies, because it had buildings that looked like they were, because they were built in the 1920s and 30s.
Yes.
There was a huge bakery that went out of business, and somebody bought it up, and I don't know what they were building. It's 3 stories tall. It's in that sort of Southern California hacienda architecture. It's some form of offices, and they got about 90% built, and now they've stopped, and the place is all shuttered, and there's no work going on. And I realized there's no work going on because all the workers went back to Mexico, and it's like there's tons of Americans who would do work there.
Yes.
There's no reason for this to sit there and rot, but it certainly is. They can't figure out how to rip off the system using Americans. So they're somewhere, having conferences trying to figure out how they can squeeze more money out of the system. And in the meantime, this giant structure is covered in black tarp. And it's just sitting there.
Well, that's covering black tarp. How about another one of the things that Trump did this week? He cut off federal funds for the high-speed boondoggle in California.
Mm-hmm.
How many billions have already been spent?
We were told by the previous governor that it would cost $3 billion and it would be finished in 2 years. And I think it's up to 19 billion now or something like that, or more.
19 billion. How many stops are already open? I mean, can you go, say,
No.
To San Jose? Santa Ana?
No.
No? Can you go to fucking Burbank on the damn thing?
Well,
No, there isn't 1 mile of tracks laid. How much money have the sons of bitches sucked up of this project without even a mile?
The original plan was that this was going to take us from Los Angeles to San Francisco faster than aircraft. And before the federal funds were cut off, they'd announced that now the first segment was going to be built between 2 little towns that nobody goes to, and the remainder in the middle of the desert. And of the remainder, it's not going to be high speed.
Right.
So it's a high-speed rail that won't be high speed. And in order to get from Los Angeles to California, you're going to have to make multiple stops and change and get on different trains.
You mean to San Francisco?
Yeah.
Because from Los Angeles to California, it's only a 15-minute trip. Why is it that nobody realizes that the purpose of all this shit is nothing but graft? T-Lady here, one of our frequent friends, is calling the new project in Pacific Palisades Cabrini Green by the Sea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose the next one will be Stevie's Son on the Shore. Morons.
You know, I'm watching a Netflix series about homicide cases in New York City. The first season of this series is in New York. The second season is in Los Angeles. So they're interviewing all these New Yorkers, retired cops and friends of the deceased. And I'm watching all of this, and these people are totally different from me. They are absolutely different. The cops, I like the cops. Some of them have like really thick accents. But the friends of the deceased, one of the cases they worked on was a wannabe singer who paid her bills by selling pot out of her apartment. And this was in the early 1980s.
Holy shit. All you had to do was go to Washington Square and get all the pot in the world. Why was it so difficult?
Well, because this place was full of love. And so you would go sit in her apartment and you would smoke and you would get high and you would meet people
and get a blowjob.
It was all intellectual. These people were all in the arts.
They were all in the blowjob.
And then you would never see him again because it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
So one night, 2 guys came in. They said she was extremely careful, but she let in 2 men. They happened to be black, and I think that's why she let them in, because she couldn't bring herself to say, I don't know you. And so they shot everybody there, and they stole all the money and all the pot. And so they were interviewing all this was 20 years ago. This is the year 2000.
Okay.
2005. And all these New Yorkers were so bizarre. They were all being interviewed in these shockingly, gigantic apartments and it was like old New York, only it's you could tell these people were going to stay there forever. And they were just talking about what a wonderful person this pot dealer was. And nobody ever explained what made her wonderful, just that she was wonderful. And
Good sense of media?
I don't know. It was just so bizarre. And one of there were 5 people shot, and one of them survived because the bullet hit behind his head, and it just traveled around on the outside of his skull and then came out on the front, and he played dead. But it was just so, these people were so different from me that I normally I believe that I can have a conversation with almost anybody, and I could tell that I would not be able to have a conversation with these people. It would be absolutely impossible.
I've been to too many parties in New York where I felt trapped in some of the introspective Woody Allen movies,
Exactly.
like Interiors,
Yeah.
and you're standing around with a lot of people who are talking, and you can understand the words, but the gibberish they're vomiting is complete nonsense, and something I cannot get engaged with. And usually, I just look at my wife and figure out a way to just skedaddle and not have to put up with them because they're insufferable. The left-wing pseudo-intellectual intelligentsia in New York is a very peculiar animal, and I'm serious. Any hole or interior depicts them to a T. Vacuous, presumptuous, narcissistic. They're unbearable.
Well, I just, the way they were talking about a murder victim, but somehow they were making it all about themselves. And
Yes,
and the first person was shot while the second person was still tying the hands of the remainders, and nobody fought. Nobody jumped up and started swinging, and there was only one gun. The gun was in the other room, and nobody. There were 2 men who were tied down, 2 women, no, 3 men and 1 woman, and nobody jumped up and tried to save themselves or save the others. And
they're
it was
probably
just,
drugged up too.
well, they were all talking about, they would go there and they would smoke, and they would drink wine, and they would just talk. And I just knew exactly what the conversations would be like.
Oh, yeah.
And these are all people in their 30s. Like, I mean, I used to do that when I was in college, when I was 21.
I was going to say I was in many situations like that when I was in college, 21, 22, 23.
Yeah.
But these people in their 30s are the same thing. In the 40s, they are the same thing. In the 50s, they're the same thing, but sadder.
Yeah.
But sadder.
No,
And
one
when
of
they get
the
to
one of the
60s, it's a pathetic same thing.
one of the friends they interviewed, she was sitting in a chair, and she had her legs pulled all the way up to her chest, and she was about 60 years old. She had hair down to here with a big long blue streak in it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I don't know. It was just, I was just really struck at how utterly different.
Don't you know that makes her hip and young?
Yeah, it was really, really odd. And that was 2000. The crime happened in 2005. And I was just trying to imagine what it's like. Okay, the owner of In-N-Out Burger just announced today that she's leaving California.
Yeah. In 5 years, the move will be complete to Tennessee.
Yep. And this
It
is
managed to do it.
this is a Californian born and bred,
Yes.
and she's young, she wears hip clothes and everything, and she can't stand it here anymore.
No. And she's in Northern California, which is far away from the bullshit of San Francisco and LA. It's a conservative or relatively conservative area. But enough is enough, and they have to do business. And now, what surprised me is that she announced that the restaurants would remain open in California.
Mhm.
I doubt they will for long.
They just closed their second. They closed the first, which was in Oakland. They closed the second, which was somewhere in California. And there was a video, and it was just this teeming crowd of nutcases all screaming and bashing each other. And I don't know.
Yeah, and by the way, the reason that she says they're going to stay in Tennessee is because they're using a plant in Texas to
Mhm.
process all of their meats, and they can deliver so far. That's what she said. Um, and Tennessee is within the radius. Um, her point was that South Carolina, Virginia, North Carolina were a bit too far. So I don't know how that can be. There are points. It only takes one step to go from Tennessee to Virginia. But hey, what the fuck? But my impression was that once they consolidate the move to Tennessee, they're going to continue to move, and they're going to continue to move east, and they're not going to look back.
No, because I remember when the first In-N-Out Burger opened in Texas. In-N-Out Burger was like purely California. And then I remember when it opened in Texas, and what they said was that in California, it took 3 years to open a franchise, and in Texas, it took 3 weeks.
I was going to say less than a month.
Yeah.
Same thing in Florida.
Yeah.
Not quite the same thing, but about a month in Virginia. Don't even try it in New York City.
Yeah, I just, the mind boggles. Like Californians, okay, Californian politicians are getting stupider. Gavin Newsom is stupid. Karen Bass is stupid. These are people who don't know anything about their job.
No. Or anything else for that matter.
Gavin Newsom is very, very hurt that Trump calls him new scum. And he keeps talking about it over and over and over and over again to tell us how much it doesn't bother him.
Yes. I wonder if he's going to find out that I call him gruesome.
It's the weirdest thing. It's you look back on California and how it was, and then you look at how it is today, and you just wonder, like, a lot of the voters are the same people who were alive 30, 40 years ago.
Now there's got to be a brain-eating bacteria.
That's what I think.
Growing in California, because I mean, there were idiots, to be sure, in California galore, airheads. Governor Brown, the first time around, wasn't the brightest light in the chandelier.
No.
His father wasn't much better. What was the name of the guy that was recalled because he dared raise a car registration fee?
Gray Davis.
Gray Davis. Gray Davis was, kind of like the anchor man in the Mary Tyler Moore show.
Mm-hmm.
His impression that he gave me. They were almost harmless in their idiocy.
Mm-hmm.
But after Davis was recalled, the whole thing took a dive.
It started with Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, well, he was the one elected to replace David, wasn't it?
Schwarzenegger put on a really good show, but when it came down to the actual, Schwarzenegger is a brilliant businessman. Schwarzenegger realized early on that he was going to get much farther. Okay, there's two actors. There's Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then there was a Dutch guy named Rutger Hauer. Rutger Hauer learned to speak completely unaccented American English. And he made a lot of movies, but they were mostly B movies and C movies. Schwarzenegger became a phenomenon, and part of it was his accent. Schwarzenegger realized early on that his accent was
an asset.
It worked for him.
Remember the first movie he made? They're all, kind of this utopian shit with people dressed in tunics, and they dubbed him because of his accent.
Mm-hmm.
And his character speaks flawlessly. And it was a Class B movie nobody ever saw again or remembered.
The first movie they made where they played his accent for comedy, it was a comedic Western, and he was a sheriff. And this was the movie where they I don't know if you've ever seen very many Schwarzenegger movies. The character he always plays is named like Brad Jones. He's got this accent like that. He's never named Hans Schmidt. He's always John Smith. And in this movie, he was a sheriff, and his name was something like Bill Johnson. And he had this thick German accent, and there was this scene where this guy came up, and he's like, Sheriff, the guys are coming over here, they're rustling the cattle, and what we do? And Schwarzenegger said, that is easy for you to say. And it just cemented him as the accent, he was a brilliant businessman, but when it came to running the state, he flew home every night from Sacramento.
He was too busy fucking the maid.
Exactly. That's the sort of thing that what I like about Trump is he takes his job with incredible responsibility. He understands that so much depends on him doing a good job. And it seems like the number of politicians who are awestruck at the responsibility of their own job, they're in they're minimal. The overwhelming majority of politicians act like their jobs are just fun, making money, going on TV.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. That's another thing with the friend I was speaking with today. That he was talking about Trump and how much money he has or doesn't have. And I said, listen, I don't care how much money he has. What worries me in a politician is people who come to the White House with 20 cents to rub and live with hundreds of millions.
Mm-hmm.
That bothers me. How much money he has coming in, I don't care. And I understand, and I think it's true, that Trump is the first guy in at least a half a century to have lost money in the White House.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, isn't it?
I would prefer billionaires as presidents because when you think about it, I remember.
That depends. I wouldn't like Jeff Bezos, or what the fuck is the founder of Google, Russian name?
I know who you're talking.
Green, or Lauren Jobs. No, there are billionaires, or God forbid, Bill Gates. So it's not just a question of money. Richard Nixon. I went to his house in New Jersey in '81. It was, He wasn't fully rehabilitated yet. But I had seen um, an interview that made me think maybe this guy is not what they're selling me. His house was a regular fucking middle class, upper middle class house in New Jersey with normal furniture. This guy did not live like a tycoon. He didn't live in a walled compound in Washington or in Martha's Vineyard. He lived in a regular fucking neighborhood. And then he moved to a regular apartment in New York, not to a mansion. This guy didn't have a shit ton of money. He had the relatively well being expected of somebody who had had a good fucking salary for a long time. I don't have a problem with that either.
Well, the issue with Nixon is that you're never going to get a straight depiction of him by the press. Never, ever, 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 ever. We've heard more lies told about Nixon than the number of lies told about Nixon begin to approach the number of lies told about Trump.
Yeah.
And Nixon became this bête noire for the left, and it was completely undeserved.
Well, he won 49 states. He had to be eliminated.
Well, exactly, and we just simply okay. I studied Trump long before the press really started going after him. So I know the real story about Trump. In the case of Nixon, it would be really, really hard to find out the real story about Nixon now because he's been buried by the press. He's been buried by historians. He's been buried by everybody. And
one day we can do a program on that. Nixon is a surprisingly great guy.
oh yeah, I mean, there's the kitchen debates he had with Khrushchev, where he just extemporized this debate that was absolutely brilliant because it wasn't hostile and Khrushchev was into it. He was having a good time and the audience was into it. They were having a good time. And this was at the height of the Cold War. This is when, you know, the majority
this is before the missile crisis. This is this is the time when we were taught in school to duck and cover.
Exactly. And that's a great thing that Nixon did. He brought the temperature down single-handedly.
Yes.
And he did it at the spur of the moment. It wasn't planned. So that's a great thing. There's very few people who can be pointed to by history and say, this guy changed everything for the good.
Yes.
On the spur of the moment. It's almost unheard of. And
it was unheard of. And he did it. He did it in the Vietnam War. He did it with Khrushchev. He did it with Mao. He de-escalated the world from the brink of nuclear war.
And it is likely, given our history in terms of world wars and crazy leaders, it is likely that we would have had a nuclear exchange at some point. I know that
without the de-escalation, no doubt.
Currently, the claim is that at some point we're going to go to war against Russia. I don't see it happening. I know that you know, generals in NATO have said that this is going to happen within the next year and a half. I don't blame them for saying that because it's a way to light a fire under everybody's ass to get, you know, just to do the right thing. But I don't see us going to war against Russia. Before we went on the air, I looked up. Let's see. Okay. I was listening to some guys jabbering on and on about all the what a huge disadvantage we'd be at in a war with Russia and okay, let me just find this real quick.
While you do that, I want to say that yesterday Gerald Ford was one of the most intelligent persons ever to walk into the White House as president or not. And he was mercilessly mocked by the left, by Chevy Chase and Saturday Night Live and all of those miscreants. Richard Nixon was caricatured. Would you buy a used car from this man?
Exactly.
Mercilessly. I remember postcards they were selling in right by the Village Theater in on Blicker Street. There was this peculiar curio store, and they had postcards oriented to the gay community, and there was this picture of an Arab taking Nixon from behind. That was the usual thing.
Yeah.
And we complain sometimes about the way the press treats Trump and all that. Just they treated Nixon, Ford, and Reagan in the exact same way, and Bush. He made a lot of mistakes, but he was definitely a hell of a lot brighter than Obama. But they had to contend with the relentless demoralization of the American press that was dedicated to ruining their presidency from the moment they were elected. They considered their election a mistake that needed to be corrected. And that is the mentality that led to the 2017 coup.
Right.
Still ongoing. Some of the actors in the 2017 coup were participants in the coup, in the successful coup against Nixon.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of the casus belli against Nixon, there was nothing there. It was a nothing fucking burger. And they succeeded in removing the President of the United States and replacing him with the first person ever to occupy the White House without an election.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the reasons behind it, oh, man, he said fuck in a tape.
Mm-hmm.
He delivered the tapes. He kept them. He didn't burn them. He delivered them. He trusted in the system. Now, one of the people who participated in the coup against Nixon was Hillary Rodham.
Mm-hmm.
And when the bitch was asked to deliver what she had in her servers, she destroyed the fucking servers and then mocked America. Oh, you mean I wiped them like with a cloth? And she's still free.
Yeah.
No, she succeeded with Nixon. They had every expectation that they would succeed with Trump.
Hillary saw herself. Hillary believed her own propaganda. I remember Hillary was touted as the smartest woman in the United States. So
every other woman is a fucking imbecile.
Well, Hillary created her own intelligence service led by people who were not intelligence agents.
Or intelligent, period.
And when it came to Libya, she had people feeding her misinformation that her own people were too stupid to understand was misinformation. So she was making decisions based on garbage because she figured if she was brilliant, the people she chose were brilliant, and they would know how to get the right information. But okay, I found what I was looking for earlier. NATO has replaced all its. It had a response force, and it had a very high readiness joint response force. And now it's called the Allied Reaction Force, which is ARF. And so, if the Russians tried something, the ARF can respond within 45 minutes. And this notion, okay, and anyway, what are the Russians going to attack with? What are they going to use?
Borscht?
I guess.
Just the Scandinavian. The Scandinavian command, because the air forces of Sweden, Finland, and Norway, and I believe Denmark, are under a unified command. Even though Norway is not NATO, but all of those Scandinavian air forces are under a single unified command. Over 200 fifth-generation aircraft. The closest base to Russia is 35 miles from St. Petersburg. How long do you think it would take them to push the Russians all the way to Moscow?
Well, currently in Moscow, the only air defenses they have is they took these wheeled vehicles known as the Panzer, and they put them up on top of these buildings. They don't have any missiles. They don't have any ground-to-air missiles other than missiles about this long that the Panzer fires.
Ukrainian-made drones fly all the way to within 100 yards of the Kremlin.
Yeah.
And these fucking idiots are wondering, well, it would take us a year and a half to prepare to respond to Russia. Are you out of your fucking mind? It would take 15 minutes.
Well, these guys I was listening to tonight, they were talking about the Russians invading Finland.
Yeah, that worked so well the last two times. The Russians want to go back for more.
Well, the Finns joined NATO because they didn't want to fight with Russia. They didn't just join NATO and then sit back and start twiddling their thumbs.
Oh, no. The Russia-Finland border is a fucking porcupine.
It's a porcupine, and not only that, you don't ever want to get into a fight with a Finn.
No.
Especially if you're a Russian. If you're a drunk Russian who has no idea why he's there, and you go up against Finns, I mean, they're going to take you apart. They're going to take your tank apart with bayonets.
Yeah, using your head as a ramp.
Exactly.
No, they're too stupid. People don't realize we were mocking the Russian army. I found some threads buried deep in Twitter. They don't come on my search, on my Botlean searches, but one of the quotes gave me a heads up, and I found out that I can find replies to them, and through the replies find them. And I found a couple of ones where you and I discuss. I know you and I because the first thing is, Thomas, I found this, and I proceeded with my thread. It was a thread where I talk about the miserable fucking state of the Russian Army, Navy, and Air Force. 2017, December of 2017. There was no invasion of Ukraine, no war in Chechnya. They barely had a couple of morons drinking vodka in their resort. And I was mocking them Then Gennady Gerasimov, the great military strategist who was organizing the parades in Moscow. That was in 2017, when they still had something that could be called an army.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, they were considered to be the second army in the world. Today, they're the second army in Ukraine.
Remember, before the Ukraine war, it was a given that the Russians had a fleet of over 10,000 tanks.
Yes.
And never mind that at least half of them were in storage dumps.
Yeah.
They're all gone. They're all gone.
Even the ones they had in museums. They're gone. They don't have any more tanks. They don't have any more anything.
Well, that's why they're using...
When was the last time that a Russian submarine or cruiser, never mind the Kuznetsov. The Kuznetsov hasn't been going anywhere for 80 years. When was the last time you saw any naval action?
Well, the Black Sea Fleet keeps moving more and more north and east to get away from the Ukrainian drones.
Most of it is at Bikini Bottom right now. Exactly. Where's the Air Force? Where is the air dominance everybody expected? Because the Su-25 and the Su-35 and the Su-47, and they have planes that are faster than light.
Yeah, and the Ukrainians destroyed them all in one attack that hit like 15 airfields all in the same day. Yeah,
after they shut down half of them.
Yeah,
and then you had, let me see, what else? Oh yeah, the hypersonic missiles. They were faster than Superman. It's a bird. It's Superman. No, it's the Russian hypersonic missile. They took him down with Patriots.
Yeah, with old Patriots, with 1990.
Yeah, with 1992 Patriots. Patriots that were decommissioned in the 90s. And still today, there are imbeciles, there are cretins, there are people who suffered lack of oxygen at birth, who are trying to tell us that if the mighty Russian army mobilizes, we'll be in trouble, and it's going to take us 2 years to figure it out, how to respond. I mean, they're fucking brain dead. I'm sorry. I don't know how can they eat.
Well, it's one of those things where you have this idée fixe, and you refuse to face... You refuse to accept anything that goes against your idée fixe. And the idée fixe is that the Russians are, they're an enemy that we don't dare face under any circumstances, because they're going to open these doors in this enormous, vast wave of tanks and aircraft and men and women and
waves of cannon fodder. Now they're sending waves of 67-year-old cannon fodder.
Yeah.
They've emptied their jails 2 years ago. Now they're emptying their homes for the elderly. People go to the front. They don't carry a weapon. They carry a fucking cane.
I saw a video. A family. A very conservative family from Texas moved to Russia to get away from the trans things. And the husband was immediately drafted. And he went to the front, and the wife hasn't heard from him. She's worried about him because he doesn't speak Russian. The last he heard from him, he was saying that they were training him in Russian, and he couldn't follow directions because he didn't understand Russian. And they had promised him that if he did sign up, he wasn't drafted, he signed up, he would get a lot of money, and he would be put in a non-combatant role behind enemy lines. So he signed up. They've gotten no money, and he was immediately sent to the front after a week and a half of training.
Yeah,
So
no,
it's
they
like,
had great training. Great training.
it's like, lady, go back to Texas. Your husband's dead. He's not coming home.
No. Have you heard of these Russian battalions where the officers in charge essentially kill the new soldiers so that they could collect their salaries?
Yeah, yeah. They also
It's so
killed
Russian.
the Ukrainian drones have filmed Russian officers walking the battlefield, killing all the Russian wounded so they could get their salaries too.
Yeah. Which, being in Russia, the census back. And by the way, before we go, please remind me if I forget. I do want to say some things about Syria.
Syria. Okay.
Hmm? As a matter of fact, let's go into Syria
Yeah,
first,
well, let's go to Syria.
and then I'll come back to Russia Gate and Flynn Gate and all that jazz. I cannot tell you how disappointed I am that in the past 2 weeks, all I read in social media and in newspapers is garbage. Nobody seems to understand fact. I understand that some of the garbage I read is done on purpose eh, eh, to rally the troops behind the cause. We need to protect the Kurds. The Kurds, the Druze. The Druze are the new kibbutzim. Well, maybe not. A bit of advice for people who are watching us now. Syria is a land of grays. Nothing is black and white, and nobody is what they seem. Number one. So this is not necessarily. I started doing some digging about the Halabaloo. How come Marco Rubio was dealing with Shara after the attacks on the Jews? How
Say it
come?
again. How come Marco
How
Rubio
come
was?
Marco Rubio was dealing with Al Shara after the savage murder of the Druze? Why are we dealing with the terrorist? Why indeed? Well, maybe because things were not as we were told.
Yeah, it's not Al Shara's men who are killing the Druze. It's the
No.
Bedouin. It's the Bedouin militias.
First of all, it was a Druze spiritual leader, one of so many, Al-Khisri, who led an attack on Bedouins
Mhm.
just outside Al-Suwaida. And those Bedouins, and by the way, the troubles between nomadic Bedouins and agriculture culture of the Druze has been going on for what, 1,000 years now?
Well,
This is not new.
the only
So-
place where Bedouins aren't fighting the host country is Israel.
Yes, and they're no longer nomadic in Israel. So in any case, this leader of the Druze called for attacks on the Bedouins, and the Bedouins decided to take revenge and counterattacked, and went into the city and killed about 200 people. By the way, the death toll by now is near 700, but it was about 170 at the beginning. Bad, very bad, very savage, as befits a tribe of savages. Immediately, Israel went in to defend the Druze from this attack in Suwaida. Immediately, Turkey, the US, Israel, and Syria got together, worked a ceasefire, and withdrew the troops that al-Shara had sent to quell the fighting. He withdrew them. Everything was to be calm and quiet, except this very same asshole launched attacks on the Bedouins again to avenge what had happened before. And he didn't follow the ceasefire, and they attacked the Bedouins. The Bedouins issued a plea to all our brethren, and from Deir ez-Zor to wherever there is a Druze, they started marching in support of their brethren. Who's to blame? And by the way, this incredibly wonderful spiritual leader who is at the root cause of all of this trouble, a year and a half ago, was calling on the Druze to support Assad and join his army.
Yeah.
He spent 17 years sucking Assad's balls and you know, opposed to Israel, opposed to anything other than the fascist government of Assad. Some may argue, well, that was a survival technique in Assad's time, and it is to a large extent true. But during the civil war, he supported Assad without any kind of conditions, and he did so until the Assad government fell. And when the Assad government fell, oh, we want Israel to take us. Not you, asshole. I'm sorry. So it is a complex situation.
Mhm.
It wasn't Al-Shara's troops doing the killing. It was Druze militias controlled by this asshole and Bedouin militias that, you know, are just as good, if you know what I mean. And you have people taking sides, and I don't think I can.
No. You can't take sides in this case because the reason for the killing is tribal tit for tat. That's it. It's tribal tit for tat. And in the case of the Druze leader, he's trying to have a cause bellum cause
Casus
bellum,
belli.
casus belli to unite the Druze around him.
And unfortunately, there are many other Druze leaders, including the Lebanese Druze leader, who I'm sure you're familiar with, Walid Jumblat. That son of a bitch has been the spiritual leader of the Druze in Lebanon since the time that Ronald Reagan was bombing the Bekaa Valley. And there are a dozen Druze leaders, none of which support this asshole.
Well,
Interesting little concept there.
This is the thing. Walid Jumblat opposed Hezbollah like you wouldn't believe until he supported Hezbollah like you wouldn't believe.
And then he didn't support them.
And then he opposed them again. So here's what's going on in Syria. The guy who shook Trump's hand is trying to bring stability to Syria. That's all you need to know. I think, just because I've researched this guy, I think he's a Saudi agent. I don't think he was ever a bloodthirsty jihadist. That's just my opinion. Take it or leave it. We captured him in 2003. We held him for 3 years, and we released him without giving a reason.
And he started taking down Al Qaeda in Syria.
Every time he joins a terrorist group, everybody above him gets killed. He takes over the terrorist group, and then the terrorist group disintegrates.
Yep.
That's his record for almost 30 years now.
Not that long, but at least a good 15 years.
No, he was captured in 2003. So
Yeah,
we're getting up to 22 odd years.
yeah.
He was a second in command for the fucker who ate the two 500-pound bombs in Iraq, Abu Musad al-Zarqawi.
Al-Zarqawi.
So he was almost certainly the guy who turned al-Zarqawi over to the Americans. And I could be wrong, but this is just what I believe. And I would tell everybody, don't get emotionally involved with anybody over there, because it's ugly. It's ugly. These are different people. They solve their issues by killing each other.
I said, there are no blacks and whites. It's all grays.
It's all gray. And when they kill each other, they don't march each other out to a wall and shoot each other with firing squads. They butcher each other, and they hold up to beheaded heads, and they skewer babies, and they do all this shit because that's who they are.
By the way, today for you, tomorrow for me, they do it to each other all the time.
Exactly. No, there's an Arab what do you call those ancient sayings? An ancient saying.
Proverb.
Pardon me? Proverb, yes. It's I against my brother and I against our cousin, my brother, our cousin, and I against the world. So that's how they believe. I'm going to fight my brother, but then my brother and I will get together against our cousin, and then the three of us will get together against the world.
And remember what I saw a lot of experts said that nobody knows why the Bedouins and the Druze are at each other's throat. The answer is because they always have been.
Well, this is the thing, that the Bedouins have always had somebody's boot on their necks. So the Bedouins hate everybody, and the Bedouins are an easy people to attack in order to blame them for doing something that caused you to attack them. So if you want to rally your own people around you, you say, those Bedouin bastards, look what they did.
And everywhere you go, whether you find Bedouins and Druze or not, where you have a settled tribe oriented towards agriculture, and a nomadic tribe who suddenly finds their hunting grounds turned into fields, you're going to have strife. And this is a strife that has been going on for hundreds of years, since the Emirate of Damascus until today. And the only time that they weren't literally killing each other was when the fascists of the Ba'ath Party controlled the country and literally killed anybody who didn't behave.
Well, also, there aren't enough Bedouins and Druze to destabilize all of Syria. So you need to ignore everybody saying this is a continuation. I heard the same thing you heard. Al-Sarraj fled the country with his family. No.
He went to a meeting in Doha and came back. Shut the fuck up. You know, it's too much. Every time a plane... You see, the problem is that some idiot sees a plane with a registration that has been identified as being his plane, leaves Damascus. Oh, he's leaving the country. By the way, it could jolly well be that the plane is being taken someplace for maintenance and he's not aboard, which could jolly well happen. In this case, he was going to Doha for a series of meetings related to the ceasefire and back.
Well, also, you can bet your ass on one thing. After he shook hands with Trump, there are Americans in Damascus helping him out now. I don't mean trigger pullers, but I mean people helping him figure out how to repair Syria. There are Gulf Arabs in Damascus helping him out now. If necessary, Gulf Arabs will go in and kill people who need to be killed. That's all. I mean,
or the Israelis, as they have done,
or the Israelis, yeah.
And of course, when the Israelis go in to help the Druze, Al-Shara will say, we condemn in the strongest terms this illegal invasion and we want the foreigners out or there may be war. What the fuck do you want him to say?
Yeah. We applaud the Israelis bombing our own headquarters. No, of course not.
I mean, he's got millions of Syrians who would eat his liver a la Idi Amin if he didn't play his role.
No.
But has he bombed anything in Israel? Has he fired anything at Israel? Has he sent his army to confront the Israeli army? No. Why? And that's a question nobody's asking themselves.
He wants to make peace with Israel because his main goal is to repair Syria. That's what his main goal is. Syria is no longer a lackey of Iran, the Iranian mullahs.
No, he considers Iran the biggest enemy.
Exactly. Syria can now chart its own course. And the last thing, I mean, he's come out and said, we don't want a war with Israel.
You know his family is in southern Syria,
mm-hmm.
in this conflict area. You know that they're rich.
They're what?
They're rich beyond what most people would understand.
Okay, his name, his nom de guerre was Al-Julani, which means the Syrian.
The Syrian. But his Al-Shara, his family, are exceedingly rich merchants from southern Syria. His father is a very powerful figure there. He has every interest in restoring business to normal. It's not just him, it's his entire family and clan. Everybody talks about Al-Shara, nobody knows where he came from.
Well, exactly.
And if you don't understand where he came from, you don't know what he's doing. So I told you from the beginning, it's still my position, trust but verify.
Of course.
You know, he could be something different than what I think. But so far, they almost had me this time. They almost had me with the, oh, they're killing the Druze and the... So wait a second, not the Druze. It's only Al-Hishri. Al-Hishri is an asshole who needs to be excised from the Druze community.
Every time he has been accused of killing Christians, Druze, Shia, it always turns out to be somebody else.
Yes.
It's not Syrian security forces going in. And in fact, these situations where there's a blast of violence and a low number of hundreds are killed, they generally start with the killing of Syrian security forces.
Yes.
So as of yet, and again, I'm not saying I'm in love with al-Shara, but as of yet, he's not done anything that would indicate that he wants to massacre any particular person. And as Saul pointed out, he must, for now, do certain things, such as demand that women wear full hijabs when they go swimming in the sea. He has to do things like that to keep the country from going. But at some point, Syria will become a civilized, for lack of a better term, a civilized country. And it takes time in the Middle East. It takes time.
It not only takes time in the Middle East, this guy, after 12 years of civil war, with everybody and their mother's arm to the teeth, is taking power how many months ago?
Oh, 4?
From a ruthless dictator that used to drop chemical weapons on the citizenry in a country divided among hundreds of factions at each other's throat. The problem is not that he controls Syria and directs massacres. The problem is that he has not yet gained full control.
Hmm?
That there are myriad of groups around Syria that are checking each other out. That if they're not literally fighting on the streets all the time, is because they're all armed and they're all checking each other out. And every now and then, somebody gets drunk on fermented milk or something, and it flares up.
Here's what people need to understand. During the Syrian civil war, the rebels kept finding arms caches everywhere in Syria. In one case, they found a shipping crate full of brand new German assault rifles from 1944. The shipping container was full of ammunition, so they used them. And there's video of these guys out there firing brand new 1944 German assault rifles. They found tanks from 1944. They found
all of those weapons that the Nazi never sent to their allies in Syria to fuck with the British and the French. It doesn't exist. It never happened.
Hundreds and hundreds of millions of arms are Syria is awash in arms. So you can't expect Syria to Assad falls and then Syria goes and suddenly
now we're Switzerland.
Exactly. I mean it's going to take a while. These people have long memories. Think about Yugoslavia. The dictator falls, and what do? They start killing each other over shit that happened in the 14th century.
More or less. Or in 1920.
Or in 1920.
It doesn't matter. It all depends on the imagination of the local creep. And the same thing here. And the centrifugal forces that were pulling at the various ethnic groups and all that. Syria is not homogeneous at all. You have the Rohingya with the Kurds in the north, and the Alawites in Latakia, and the Druze and the Bedouins, and at least 3 different groups more, all traditionally fighting each other.
Okay, remember
it's
when
the Ottoman Empire.
Remember when we were told that Sarraj's men went in and started massacring Alawites for no reason?
Yeah, it wasn't them.
It didn't happen. It didn't happen. There was a fight between Alawite loyalists and the new Syrian security forces that started with an ambush of Syrian security forces in which 15 men were killed. That's how it started. So, the press
and then there was payback. And this time it started when the Druze, and if I tell you, a vegetable peddler, they stopped to frisk a vegetable peddler and killed him, and that began the spiral of violence.
Sure.
Because that peddler was somebody's brother and cousin. Wink, wink. And all the brothers and cousins came back and went into the city and took revenge for the attack in the countryside.
And then the Druze had to take revenge, and then the other guys.
And then we had the ceasefire, and everybody withdrew, and the Druze said, "Oh, everybody's gone. Yeah, now we're gonna take revenge." And they started it all over again. I'm telling you, this would make for a very funny black humor movie.
Yeah. And also, one final thought: we can't take everything at face value. We don't know who the Israelis bombed.
No, we do know that they bombed not the Ministry of Defense, but a specific building of a specific command.
That's exactly my point. We don't know if the Syrians got on the hotline to the Israelis and said, "We can't convert these guys. They're diehards. Can you do something about it?"
Yeah, don't worry. We'll take care of that.
Yeah. So we've been told that al-Sarraj is massacring Christians. That's not true. Now they've moved on to the Druze. They're massacring the Druze, and that's not true either. So just be careful about what you hear. Put everything in the open file and just wait.
And now that this asshole al-Hashri managed to really poke the Bedouins in the ass, the biggest problem that al-Shara has is stopping the Bedouins before they get there. So they have roadblocks all over Syria. They're trying to stop it. But it's like a dam broke. I mean, it's not going to be easy to stop all of these assholes.
No.
And of course, the one thing he cannot do is himself kill 1,000 Bedouins, because then they're going to march on Damascus, and we're going to have another 100,000 dead.
Well, you saw Netanyahu telling Israeli Druze not to go to Syria.
Yeah, they actually fired on some of them.
Yeah.
Who attacked the IDF.
Yeah.
Because it goes beyond nationalities. It goes beyond political ideologies. Is a vendetta between, this is like what was it, the McCoys?
The Hatfields and the McCoys, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Hatfields and McCoys of the Middle East. There is no rhyme or reason to it anymore.
Well, the actor Omar Sharif.
The actor Omar Sharif.
You know, he spent his entire adult life in Europe.
Yes.
And he said that what Westerners don't understand is that Arabs are entirely ruled by their tribes.
Yes.
And Sharif himself said that when he had some problem, he would go back to Egypt and find his tribal leader and have a sit down with his tribal leader to get his advice.
Yeah.
We don't understand these people. We won't ever.
That thing that I just told you about the strife of the agricultural society with the nomadic society, this is basic ethnography. But you will not find one Druze or one Bedouin who will explain it in these terms.
No.
Because for them, it has nothing to do with anything except they got us, we got to get them.
Yeah.
And the problem with Shara is that he does not have, whether people want to believe it or not, enough power to impose his will all over Syria.
I don't think he wants to send in tanks and stop the fighting by killing everybody. I don't think he wants to do that.
That's the last thing he wants, because that will restart the civil war. Yeah. And the whole thing is like a market with a bunch of people buying and selling used camels, Monty Python style. Mm-hmm. And they're haggling with each other and getting offended and raising a sissy fit and getting come down and selling another camel. And that thing is going to go on for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take some time to get, because the apparent civilization of Syria was a consequence of the oppression of the Ba'ath Party. When the Ba'ath Party was removed from the equation, everything reverted to what it was before, to a fucking mess that even the Ottomans had despaired of fixing.
No, everybody who's ever tried to rule Syria did so by killing people. And Shara doesn't want to do that. Shara wants Syria to be as MBS referred to Saudi Arabia, he said, we just want to be a normal country.
Yeah.
And Shara wants Syria to be a normal country where you can have tourists and you can go to the beach and you can enjoy yourself. And like you said.
And Shara, by the way, he was born in Riyadh.
Wow.
He was born in Riyadh, the son of a bitch. The family is from southern Syria, but his parents were in Riyadh at the time he was born. That doesn't make him a Saudi.
No.
Because, they don't have a 14th Amendment over there. He belongs to his tribe. It doesn't matter where his mother drops him. But it's going to be interesting. But I am really sick and tired of reading all of this stuff in social media and hearing all of these morons who think they know something. And there's more to it than that. And if anybody, yeah.
Here's something that people should think about. If you go back to the American invasion if you go back to 2001, Al-Qaeda's attack on the United States and our response in Afghanistan, and then
I'll be right back and leave you alone for a second.
Right. In Iraq. Al-Shara is the only major jihadist still alive from that era. All the others are dead. And when he joined a terrorist group, all his superiors would be killed. In Syria, at one point, everybody from Al-Qaeda to all the various groups, all their leaders got together in one building, and then that building was bombed by somebody, and they were all killed. So this is why I think this guy is a Saudi agent, and I just found out that he was born in Riyadh, which I didn't know. The Saudis announced in 2015 their plan for civilizing the Middle East. And at the time, it was considered madness. Could never happen. And everything that they laid out has happened. They promised that they would destroy the Islamic State. They promised that they would destroy Al-Qaeda. Everything they mentioned in this plan has happened. So what we're seeing now in Syria is inevitable. These are people who've been living under a bloody dictatorship since the father of last Assad. And the first thing they want to do for us, for Westerners, when we got our freedom, we didn't decide to go kill our neighbors. But a lot of these people, that's the first thing they want to do. They have scores to settle. And the way they settle scores is to kill each other. And that's just the way they are. All cultures are not the same. All cultures are not equal. I have to say some cultures are better than others. And, you're
not going to hear anything from me because I think ours is better. I think that the Greco-Roman culture is so superior to the rest. It's not even a contest.
And our culture today is superior to the Roman culture of antiquity, where they had gladiator games with massacres, and they would set people on fire and have them run around as entertainment, that sort of thing. So some cultures are better than others. And these people, their first response when they get their freedom is to settle scores. And a remarkably small number of score settling has taken place in Syria, considering what happened in Iraq. In Iraq, we don't even know how many civilians were killed
We never will.
in sectarian violence. The Kurds just went through another brief spat of sectarian violence just a few weeks ago. The Iraqi Kurds, where it's like the Kurds feel their fealty isn't towards tribes, their fealty is towards political parties, and they will go to war. The Iraqi Kurds went to war over political parties, and when the Iraqi Kurds offered to go into Syria to help the Syrian Kurds announced that they would fire on the Iraqi Kurds because they were from a different political party. So
yeah, they're communists.
Exactly.
They will tell you they're not.
Yeah.
I remember one meeting I had with one of them. Somebody had asked them, is it true that there are communists in the YPG? And says, no, there are no communists amongst us. None of us is a communist. Niet, I tell you, niet.
Yeah.
And at one moment he pronounced something, and I said, this son of a bitch pronounced this too well. So I turned to him and said, по-русски. And he looks at me. I says, yes. I go, oh, I thought so because of your pronunciation. Where did you learn Russian? And he says, well, I studied at the Patrice Lumumba University in Moscow. I said, holy fucking shit. To go. Patrice Lumumba was a university created by the communists in Moscow for foreign students. And the foreign students had to come recommended by the Politburo of the Communist Party in their jurisdiction. So if you were from Uruguay or from Spain or from Brazil, you needed a recommendation letter from the Communist Party of Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Spain, or whatever. He was a student at the Patrice Lumumba University. And he's telling me there are no communists here. Oh, really? You gotta be fucking kidding me.
The logo of the YPG and the YPJ was a big red star with a hand holding up an AK-47,
Oh,
it's like,
man. Where did I see that before? And, and it drives you nuts. And of course, then there was the Turkish Kurds that were essentially supported a guerrilla movement, the purpose of which was to topple the government in Ankara. Yeah, sure, that's going to happen tomorrow morning, asshole. Who have just disbanded.
mm-hmm.
After 40 years, it finally got through their thick brains that a bunch of assholes wrapped in a towel are not going to topple the Turkish army. Duh. But those guys had their own problems with the Iraqi Kurds and the Syrian Kurds.
And the Iranian Kurds. Don't forget the Iranian Kurds.
No, don't forget about the Iranian Kurds are so different too. You know that there are Jewish Iranian Kurds?
See, people talk about an independent Kurdistan. That means it would be Iraqi, Turkish, Iranian, and Syrian Kurds who would all get together and agree to give up power in order to live with each other. Never going to happen.
No, the only way that could happen is as a federation of the Kurdish people, with each retaining sovereignty over their own type. But they're too different to bang them together into one single state a la France. It's not going to happen. And frankly, I have my doubts about Iraq as a whole. I always did. I know that some notorious assholes defended the idea of a federated Iraq or even a partition. I never thought a partition would be a good idea, but I always thought a federated Iraq had a better chance, and in practice, it's becoming so. Uh, I do think that the only way to keep all of the tribes together in Syria is by force.
Mhm.
And the only alternative is some kind of federation where the foreign affairs and all that jazz is relegated to Damascus, but the Kurds, the Alawites, the
Druze.
Druze, the Bedouins, they all have their own tribal governments
Yeah.
and manage their own affairs within specific boundaries. Um,
And then
and
and then what's going to happen is they're going to have fights over the borders.
oh,
It'll
they
be like
will.
yeah.
No, they will. One of the biggest jobs of the central government would be to show the borders up their ass
Yeah.
and make sure they oblige by them. Um, so I'm curious if something if Assad has come back to being an ophthalmologist. No, he's gone back to being a proctologist. I understand that they shoved his head up his asshole, and he's been studying rectums ever since. So he's no ophthalmologist. He is now a proctologist.
Well, he's a prisoner, just like his wife. They're not going to let him go out and do what he wants in Russia. He knows too much.
Are you kidding me? He knows way too much about
Yeah.
Putin. No, I'm very surprised. He hasn't had an accident yet, or slipped out of a window or something. I'm very
Well,
surprised he's still alive.
wasn't it a year until Prigozhin was killed?
Mm, yeah, true. This has only been 4 months.
Yeah.
Putin still. I think that Putin is very distracted now, trying to save his own life.
Yeah. I mean, because, okay, we keep hearing about China and Russia uniting to go to war against the West, which will bring us World War III. The Russians would be like an anchor around the necks of the Chinese,
Well,
because the Russians would be demanding every form of weapon, soldiers, aircraft. The Chinese the Chinese have 80-year-old bombers that have a range of 800 miles. I mean, the Chinese have no way of the Chinese say that they would blockade Taiwan. Okay.
but they only spent 40 million to build a J-20.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
They only spent. It's not worth 10 million. It's fucking useless.
Yeah. No, the Chinese say that they would use surface vessels to blockade Taiwan.
Yeah,
The problem with that,
fishing vessels.
the problem with that is that the Japanese have a fleet of very advanced silent submarines, as do the United States. So all those ships would go down one by one, and there would be nothing the Chinese could do, because the Chinese have no ability to detect and destroy Japanese or American submarines.
No.
It's not possible.
But look at it on the positive side. They would lose their navy and their fishing fleet at the same time.
Well, I watched a video. It was called "The Funniest Chinese Product Fails," and this was like nothing I've ever seen in my life. This was people turning on electric fans, and the fan would explode. This was people opening a pack of clothespins and taking one out and squeezing it, and the plastic shatters. Taking one of those cords that it's a cord you plug in the wall, and it has like 4 or 5 outlets on it, and they just take it out of the bag, and then they just crush the plastic in their hand, and it turns to dust. Shoes, a brand new pair of shoes, and the soles, as you walk, the soles turn to dust, and your shoe disintegrates as you walk. These people are incapable of creating anything of value militarily. It's not possible.
No. Somebody in the chat, niche diary. The Taiwanese would just have to wait for the tide to go out.
Yeah. Yeah.
If at all. No, the whole thing is ridiculous. China is. I don't want to argue with people who say, well, if we do nothing in the next 30 years, China could. Well, if we do nothing, and nothing changes, if we keep pumping money into the Chinese, and the Chinese keep sending their children to MIT, eventually, yes, they might become a serious risk. But right now, they are not. Next year, they're not going to be. 5 years from now, they're not going to be. Right now, the Chinese ought to be more preoccupied with surviving the debacle of their economy.
I know that people think you can train the Chinese to do things, but I always have to go back to the McDonnell Douglas DC-9 airliner. The Chinese had the plans, and they were unable to make a wing spar that would meet international standards.
They kept going.
Yeah. The thing came out 10 years behind schedule, and it's only flown in China because it can't be flown outside. They just tried another one, another airliner, and it was when the Western inspectors looked at it, they said that this thing will disintegrate in midair.
Yep.
You could put your finger through the aluminum. It was like aluminum foil.
But it saves on fuel.
Okay, the Chinese, essentially the Chinese government prohibited people from investing in anything except real estate.
Yes.
And so people saved up their whole lives, and they bought an apartment in 100-story buildings.
Yes.
Now, these apartments are, after 4 years, they're falling apart. The walls are caving in, the floors are collapsing, et cetera, et cetera. But even before that, when they signed the contract, they were told that the expected life expectancy of this building was 25 years. We have skyscrapers in this country that are over 100 years old.
More. The Woolworth building in across from City Hall Park in New York City is older than that.
Yeah.
The Empire State Building is about to be 100 years old, and it was once a Zeppelin port, and a plane crashed into it in right at the end of World War II.
A bomber.
A
bomber crashed into it.
Just flew into it. 87th floor, I think it was. And it's still there. The Chrysler building is from about the same time. Beautiful, by the way. Still there. And these sons of bitches. And by the way, and if you want other examples of architecture well done, the Pantheon in Rome is 2,500 years old. It's still in top shape, and its doors, its ginormous doors, are still operable. So they cannot build for longer than 25 years. I'm sorry, I don't think they can build for 2 years. I think their buildings are shit the moment they're done. There was an earthquake in Thailand not too long ago, and of all the skyscrapers in Bangkok, one came crumbling down. It was being built by China.
Chinese. Yep.
So it doesn't matter where they are. It was a B-17, says somebody in the chat about that. Well,
Actually,
yes, it was.
it was a B-25. It was a twin-engine bomber, and if you go on Google Images, look up Empire State Building plane crash or bomber crash, and you'll see some pretty shocking photos. But it was a twin engine. Our all those buildings, they're going to stand there indefinitely, and the Chinese skyscrapers the people who signed the contracts knew that these things were going to last for 25 years, but the Chinese have no means of demolishing them. You can't demolish a 100-floor skyscraper using dynamite, because it creates a pile of shit, like 10 city blocks.
Yes.
The mindset is just incredible. It's the corruption that nobody's thinking about the future. Nobody's thinking about others. It's really shocking to me that this could be a plague that infects the entire country. And this is why so many Chinese emigrate to the United States. I mean, I think I told you, I was in a Home Depot and my brother and I were going to return some Chinese object we'd bought. And the man in front of us was a Chinese immigrant, and he just turned around and he said, "Is that Chinese?" And we said, "Yeah." He said, "That's why I left the country." He said, "Every transaction made in China, down to buying a steamed bun on the street, every transaction is rotten with corruption." And we watched him go on.
We've discussed that too. Oh my God. A communist party governed country being corrupt?
Yeah.
Oh, don't tell me Cuba is corrupt too.
Well, just wait. Well, to what New York City is going to be like.
New York City is already quite corrupt, and it's already governed by sociopaths. It's going to take some work to make it more corrupt, but I trust the communists will deliver. Like Bass is delivering in Los Angeles was already one of the most corrupt cities in the country, but it took a communist like Bass to make it even worse.
Yeah, no, she's really amazing, and people love her. They're in love with her. They want to go to bed with her. They want to cuddle her.
I've seen her. I will cut off my balls and eat them before I cuddle with that thing.
Californian voters they're the living end. They really are.
God, she's ugly.
They hate Trump so much that they're taking steak knives and stabbing themselves in the face, saying, "What do you think about that, you Trump supporters?" And it's like, well, you're free to do that. I don't know.
Keep at it.
Yeah.
She has a face, with a slit for a mouth. There was a type of frog in the countryside near Buenos Aires called an escuerzo. I have no idea what the name is in English because I've never seen it out here. But the escuerzo was like a singularly ugly frog with a horizontal slit for a mouth. Karen Bass. Spitting image. Just paint her green.
Well, she had a long career of corruption and failure and incompetence before she became the mayor. And when she announced that she was running, all the conservatives said she's going to make it because she's corrupt, she's stupid, and she's incompetent. So therefore, she's going to be the next mayor.
Yep. And remember, there are people in Los Angeles who need the authorities in Los Angeles to be both corrupt and stupid.
Yeah.
Because if they're going to serve the purposes of their bosses, they have to not have an idea what the fuck they're doing, lest they want to compete, and they have to be easily viable. Um, oh, Gonzalo, this guy, I'll definitely want to answer him. He's asking you if it is true that traffic in LA is better after the ice rains.
90% better. When I go out now, it's as if I'm going out on a Sunday at about 2:00 in the afternoon. There's no traffic anywhere. It's amazing. What we had in this city were clown houses where you had like 10 families living in them. And so they had like 15 cars crammed around the house. This street used to always have so many cars on the street that I drive a low car. I don't drive a big giant SUV type car. So everybody else drove big giant SUVs and pickups. So I'd have to go out and I have to be leaning way back to see, all that's gone now. It's back to normal. My quality of life has gone up exponentially since all of this happened.
Well, don't forget to send a thank you note to ICE. And I hope they finish the job. What the hell?
Did you see the video of the idiot who slashed an ICE tire? So they chased him down and beat him up and then sprayed pepper spray in his face, and his wife was screaming, "He's a U.S. citizen." And
he slashed the tire.
One of the ICE agents said, "So what? He slashed our tire." So what if he's a U.S. citizen?
He's a U.S. citizen, yeah, but he's robbing your bank, asshole. I do hope it's already starting. Trump has already said some things about this, but it has to percolate. I want immunity for law enforcement for anything they do in the pursuit of their duties that does not involve a crime.
Did you see the video in Kentucky of the people trying to stop ICE on the bridge?
Oh, where the car pushes them?
No, what I was looking at was the people on the side. The ICE went to arrest this guy, and he resisted. So one ICE guy just started punching him in the face.
Yes. Is that the one with the fat woman next to it that they later dragged through the fence and cuffed?
Well, there was a fat woman, and she started kicking them, and one of the ICE officers grabbed her by the hair and yanked her down onto her face, onto the pavement.
Yeah.
And he made her bend double for a second. So that was like the most flexible she's been in like 20 years, I'm sure.
At least.
ICE doesn't mess around. ICE, back in 2020, when the Bureau of Prisons members of what are known as the goon squads, when they were breaking up Antifa protests, I've never seen anything like that. And now we're starting to see it again. There are, you can sign up to be attached to ICE now. So if you're a member of the goon squad in the Bureau of Prisons, you can have a temporary assignment attached to ICE. And I'm pretty sure I'm seeing goon squad guys going out there.
You mean that aging, balding men from Florida cannot do it?
My guess is that they're overwhelmed with volunteers right now, so they
Because
probably are.
you said they're taking people, and I was going, yeah.
Well, they're probably taking the 20-year-olds ahead of you and me.
Oh, but I'm good. I'm better than most 20-year-olds, I'll tell you.
It's just really okay. We've had one armed ambush, which a cop was shot, but we haven't had the level of violence that I expected.
It's coming. It's coming. I can smell it. I can smell it. These fucking assholes are getting desperate. They're getting desperate. And Trump and ICE and DHS and CBP and everybody's moving relentlessly. You should see all the idiocies that I hear every day here about Alligator Alcatraz. I heard an asshole on Spanish TV, Spanish language TV, not Spanish from Spain, that explaining to people that jails are there so that we can put in the people who have who put us in danger, so that we take the criminals and we put them in jail so that we are safe. No, jail is for the innocent, asshole. Prisons are where we put the convicted criminals. Jails, among other things, are for holding people to guarantee their appearance in court. That's not the same as being guilty of anything. You don't have to be guilty of anything to be in jail. You just have to be accused, and then they try you, and then they find you innocent and let you go. They find you guilty, they send you to prison, not jail. So over that fallacy, he built an entire argument about how they're sending poor people who didn't commit any crime. They came here only to work, and now they're putting them in there like a criminal. No, they're putting them in there like a fucking illegal alien.
Did you see the video of the car that it was a pickup truck? It careened down the street, leaving this incredible trail of destruction, and it stopped on the sidewalk, and inside were two drunk Mexicans who had big smiles on their faces, and they didn't speak English, and they both had their bottles of beer in their laps.
Yeah.
And they weren't even worried. It was just like, wow, we are not one culture.
No. People say how, Islam is incompatible with our values. They will never be able to assimilate. You think that fucking drunken bastard you're describing ever will adopt our values?
Okay, the people next door, they've been there 20 years now, and they're on the third generation of mother of the house. She doesn't speak Spanish. There's no loud music. There are no dogs. And when the men get too loud, she comes out the front door and screams at them to shut up, and they shut up. And little by little, they got rid of the narco corridas. They got rid of, but it took 3 generations. It took 20 years.
It always takes 3 generations. It always takes 3 generations. We've discussed this before.
But the first generation, they had ducks, they had geese. At one point, they had a goat. They had a goat in this entirely suburban neighborhood. They had geese. They had a pen with giant dogs.
Come on. The man of the house had to fuck something.
It was incredible.
Of course they needed a goat.
There were always animals making noise. The house was packed. It was a clown house. The man of the house keeled over dead at 48 of a heart attack. They gave it to their daughter, who was born here. She had her daughter at 16. That woman is now in she's the head of the household here, and she has no patience for anything. She keeps the house. The first generation that was there, they collected junk. They collected metal junk that they piled up on either side of the house. When the English speaking daughter got the house, the first thing she did was have a giant dumpster pulled up.
Hold the whole shit up.
Threw everything away, absolutely everything, and so it took them 20 years, but people had to die. People had to move back to Mexico. People had to go somewhere else, and they took their ducks with them, their chickens.
Good. Anyway, let me make a brief respite. People, we've been here for 2.5 hours. I see there's over about 1,000 people still watching.
Wow.
And well, that is absolutely wonderful and bodes well for these for the run of these on demand. It is my time to remind you all that unlike the fuckers at NPR or Voice of America, we don't get a fucking dime from anybody. And ever since we started this back in 18, when we were kicked out of Twitter and all the jazz, we have depended exclusively on support from our viewers and our friends. So, this is what I say. If you haven't donated yet, please do. If you have, thank you very much. If you haven't, what the fuck are you waiting for? Send us a cup of coffee, for crying out loud, you stingy bitches. $5 a month for to support us with a subscription in Twitter. It's a half a fucking cup of coffee in Starbucks. Send us a whole cup of coffee over here. And if you are in watching us in Odyssey, the new payment system in Odyssey is up and running and it works. But it requires following their instructions, and you don't have to trade with crypto or any of that shit. If all you want to do is send us $10, you can do that. The only thing is you have to use a debit card because, yes, it is a crypto wallet. Odyssey decided to do that because they were sick and tired of the meddling of merchant services that were making too many demands over control of the channels. So they've done that. It's not a question of whether we like it or not. And chances are a lot more things are going this way. So you have to open the wallet and, deposit an X amount of money that you can then give at pleasure to us or anybody else in the system. And eventually, if you decide to take your chips, you sell them and take your money back. The video going around a few years back, some third place. No, that's a different thing. Not what I'm talking about. So please do if you can. Of course, any donations through support at through a subscription in at the Brother Lie or at quadverum.com/support us. Doesn't have any of that products. It's a straightforward, any credit card will do kind of deal. So please send us $1 or $2. We really need it. We want to keep doing this until all of the people who banned us are themselves broke. Uh, Help us get to that lofty objective. Now, let me see. No, that's the thing. The last subject for us today, we have a half an hour to go.
Uh-huh.
Finally, people are talking about the stuff that we were talking about in 2017 and 2018. And we're no longer questioning the Russia hoax. And now everybody knows what we've said from the beginning, that it was Obama controlling the entire fucking show. Uh, Remember the January 5, 2017 meeting where Obama told them to go buy the book? And the one thing nobody's
To
talking
go
yet
what?
is that to go after Trump, buy the book. You know,
By
you
the
have to
book.
investigate
Yes,
Trump,
yes.
buy the book. And what people are not commenting around the new discoveries is that in that very meeting is where Joe Biden, who knew as much about the law as he did about anything else, suggested that Comey go after General Flynn using the Logan Act. And Sally Yates, who was present there, then came out talking about a possible violation of the Logan Act. And that's how the fuck Flynn, then fuck Trump mission started. All of this we discussed and published a long time ago. What nobody's talking much about yet is the Cambridge seminar where Stephen Halper and Dearlove ran a Russian spy operation that was so egregious that they had to close it down in December of 16 when things began to get too hot for them in England. These very people who were running a Russian intelligence operation in Cambridge University are the ones who created the dossier against Trump. And Harper, who was in Oxford at the same time as Billy Clinton, except that Harper was a Rhodes Scholar because he graduated and Clinton wasn't because he never did. He was too busy smoking pot at the time. That Harper was one of the key contributors to the Office of Net Assessment in the Pentagon when he collected millions and millions of dollars for no work, courtesy of Hillary Clinton and James Baker. They're not talking about him yet. It's about fucking time somebody did. The relationship between Halper and Dearlove is a matter of record. What happened with the Cambridge seminar is a matter of record. It's not something that it's a well guarded secret in somebody's vault. There are newspaper articles. There was a veritable scandal in England at the time. And those are the people who created the Russia collusion dossier to smear Trump at Hillary Clinton's request, and who was spread around the country through, uh, 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 oh God, Fusion GPS. Nobody has gone to jail yet. They have to. They have to. At the very least, it's a seditious conspiracy. There is a statute of limitation of 5 years on a seditious conspiracy, but the clock starts ticking when the conspiracy ends, and the conspiracy is ongoing. All of these assholes that I mentioned at the beginning of the program, from Dick Durbin to Melonhead or Pencil Neck, all of these assholes were instrumental in the spreading of disinformation, and they are still doing it. And they're doing it for the sole purpose of impeding the presidency of Donald Trump. What the American people chose, they don't like, so they conspire against it. I really, but really, really, really want to see them go to jail by now.
Definitely.
How many FBI agents should be sent to get Obama, says President? Not one. We should send sanitation workers. You don't send FBI agents to pick up the garbage. I would send sanitation workers with backup from law enforcement. What do you think of that idea, Thomas?
Well, okay, I know that the DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, has referred the Russia collusion case to the Department of Justice. But if charges are filed, then against Comey and Brenner and et cetera, basically the court case is going to go on for like the next 10 years.
I don't know if 10 years, but the next 2 or 3 years for sure.
I don't know. I don't know.
Then there's going to be the appeals and all that jazz.
Yeah. I just don't know. Okay, where's Comey these days? Where's Brennan these days?
Oh, Comey these days is arranging seashells to spell 8647 and then pretend he didn't know what it meant.
Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, that very action is still part of the seditious conspiracy.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I don't know.
Now, I don't care if any of them goes to jail in the end. I want them in court facing a jury.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Not in D.C.
Well, that's another issue. You think there's lawfare against Trump right now. The lawfare that would be brought against Trump in the case that these people were all charged would be like stuff we hadn't ever seen before.
Hey, we can shop for judges the way they can. We can pick and choose which court we're going to present this in.
Yeah, I fully understand the desire, but in my case, for me, my brother is still very angry about the way we handled COVID. And the reason I'm not angry is because that was a one-time thing. People said that was a test to see if Americans would cooperate. And I don't see it that way. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think.
I don't think the ones who were issuing the orders were smart enough to do that. And I also know that Americans will never wear masks again. They'll never agree to shutdowns again. That was a one-time thing.
And I do agree with you. Most of those giving the orders were playing follow the leader.
Yeah. And I guess what I'm getting to is that there's never going to be another attempt. Like, okay, when J.D. Vance eventually runs.
They're doing it now, Thomas.
True. They're doing it now.
They're doing it now. If we don't get these seditious asshats and give them uh, keeping dose of their own medicine, they're gonna keep going at it. I
Yeah,
want to
and
see. I want to see the ethics committee in the House and the Senate bring all of these assholes, like say, Shift to Shift, Durbin, and I want them to have to explain publicly what they did. Why did you leak information? Why did you make all of these patently false statements that you knew to be false at the time you did them?
but I mean, do you think that's ever going to happen?
I think it can happen. I think it should happen.
Well, of course, it should happen, but
I think, for instance, that uh, the Speaker of the House has the authority to convene a committee to investigate the illegal activities of members of the House through the Ethics Committee, if need be, and then make public the results. I want to see the fuckers squirm, and this can be done. And if at one point they could say, well, but we don't know if they did, well, now we do. Now we do. Some of the information released by DNI Gabbard is damning for this asshole.
oh, sure.
And I think if we don't act on it, we're inviting more of it. They did it to Nixon. They did it to Bush. They did it to Reagan. They did it to Trump. And they'll keep on doing it. And they're going to keep on making this country ungovernable every time a Republican wins. Unless we stop them on their tracks and show them that, well, maybe you're not going to jail for the rest of your life. But remember what you did to General Flynn. Remember what you did to. Remember that the process is the punishment. Good. Prepare for your punishment, asshole, because you're going to go through the process.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now, will it happen? I don't know. That is what I would like to see happen.
Well,
Somebody's putting already in the chat, military tribunals? For fuck's sake, no. This is not a military dictatorship, and these people are not prisoners of war. In a country where we take prisoners of war and bring them to civil courts, we're not going to take civil servants and bring them to military courts. And this is the kind of shit we need to end. And the only way we can end this shit is by having these assholes pay at least some, have some consequences for their sedition.
yeah.
They had no problem rounding up thousands of people and ruining their lives because they happened to take a fucking stroll on Capitol Hill.
True.
And yeah, there were bad actors there. Bad actors who should have gone to jail and eventually were pardoned together with the rest of them because they threw them in the same pot with retirees looking to see what the hell the hullabaloo was about. They had no problem doing that. They had no problem processing information and geolocating every fucking cell in Washington that day.
Mm-hmm.
But they never found the guy who put the pipe bombs at the Republican and Democrat offices on Capitol Hill. That one we never found. We never even looked for it.
They were still chasing January 6 attendees all the way up to the very end of the Biden administration.
Yes. So you know what? Let's chase anybody who participated actively in the biggest fucking coup attempt in the history of this country. People who wanted to topple the legitimately elected president of the United States by nefarious means. People who misused our law enforcement, our intelligence resources, who falsified documents, who went after the innocent, who ruined lives, from people who were falsely accused of having affairs, to people who were falsely accused of treason. What they did to General Flynn, I don't want to see done to anybody, anywhere, at any time. And I was in the courthouse to see it. I think that judge is corrupt to the fucking bone, Emmett Sullivan. And now he's a senior judge in the Washington, D.C. District Court. Fuck him. He should be answering for his actions. But nothing happened. So what's going to happen the next time one of these assholes tries it? No problem, baby. Nothing happens. If we succeed, we succeed. If we fail, we can all go afterwards to a speakeasy and have a drink together. Deb says General Flynn is calling for Obama's passport to be confiscated. Of course it should be. Both the American and the Kenyan passport. Sons of bitches. And by the way, I'm going to see the general on this week before I see you next time. So wish me luck. I hope he doesn't ask me to surrender my passport after this. But yeah, of course Obama should surrender the passport. I don't believe that the son of a bitch, Obama, that is, will ever spend a day in jail. I don't believe it's going to happen.
No.
But I want him surrendering his passport. I want him to go to court. And if we are lucky at all, I want him to be found the felon he is. He will never be able to repay the damage he's done to this country. I remember when you sent me the list that you made of the felonies committed by Obama in his presidency. Remember that?
Yeah, it was incredible.
It was mind-boggling. It was mind-boggling. I'm still working on it, by the way, because I agree with each and every one, and I think I added another 20. But the problem is to seriously document it, to present it to the folks. It's not even a thread or one of these shows. It's a fucking book.
Mm-hmm.
There's a shit ton of felonies. Remember when he extorted BP?
Mm-hmm.
Over the Gulf leak that wasn't even BP's responsibility, it turned out to be. But his thing is, you either give me 25 billion or I'll chase you out of the country and cancel all of your payments. Okay, so where's the 25 billion go? The Treasury? No, it goes to a special fund for the people affected by the leak. Oh, and who's going to handle, who's going to administer these? Oh, my friend Johnny here. And Johnny administered the 25 billion. No one fucking community in the Gulf got a dime. There were no people affected by the leak because nobody could find the oil by the time this was going on. And he took the 25 billion and spread it among his friends. No wonder at the end of his presidency, he gets a $65 million advance for a book that was never written and never will be. Somebody had to pay him for services rendered. He comes into the White House penniless and lives with a couple of $100 million
Mhm.
and a $16 million house in DC and a $20 million house in Martha's Vineyard. And God knows how much hidden around the world. If I learned one thing dealing with corrupt governments is if there are no consequences, there is no deterrence.
Mhm.
I think that Steph Halpert has to pay for his treason to this country. And I mean treason. And we were at war at the time. So, treason in terms of war, you know what that means. Fuck the son of a bitch. We cannot get dear love. Let the Brits deal with their own shit. We need to act with Tommy and McCabe and Strzok and Priestap and the Oars and Anthony Ferrante. I mean, there are so many names most people haven't even heard yet. And Tashina Gauhar. We need to get them all. And we need to make them spend their ill-gotten gains defending themselves for charges of sedition, treason, malversation, because, by the way, using government resources for a purpose other than intended is a crime too.
Mhm.
There ought to be a rap sheet longer than the old New York phone book in the 1980s. And then, should still be subpoenaed. You cannot subpoena still, my friend. He's a fucking British citizen living in England, completely out of your jurisdiction. And you don't need that too. Still is a clown. He is a nobody. He's not the author of anything. He's the guy who lent his name to the charade. So, um, I see people are even more upset than I am. I'm surprised this country wasn't thrown into civil war because you don't understand the nature of civil war, my friend. I'm sorry. If you did, you would understand why. That wasn't even a question. Still isn't. When I see the army divided, we'll talk. Um, when you add up all the dastardly things they did to Trump, it's unbelievable. Somebody needs to pay. Yes, what they did to us. Another one. Is Mike Pence partially responsible for Flynn getting fired? No. No, he's not. And people may differ with me because he did make a mistake. It was a sophomoric, stupid mistake that was used uh, ex post facto by the seditious vermin. And that was, he was set up,
Yeah.
like the press always does. He was going for an interview. And by the way, it happens to me sometimes, when you go to these TV shows
Mhm.
and they tell me we're gonna talk about A, B, or C, and I prepare and refresh my memory for A, B, and C. And when I get there, they ask me something out of the fucking blue that has nothing to do with the thing, and you have to either answer or say, "I'm sorry, but I think I would have to review that before I can give you an answer," which is something I have said before, but it's not something that comes naturally to people. People when asked a question, particularly people like a recently elected vice president, they want to give the answer because they don't want to look foolish. So you have a cocksucking bitch who got her job on a TV news program through her sexual arts because she has no fucking brain, doing whatever they tell her to do because otherwise she's fired and she's going to have to earn the rest of his living. The rest of his life, she's going to have to earn his living in a whorehouse because nobody else will hire her for this obvious shit. So what they did is he went in to talk about some things, and this ink shitter vomited the question to him about General Flynn and his call with Ambassador Kislyak. Are you aware that General Flynn spoke with Ambassador Kislyak, or worse? Because are you aware would not have gotten him. But they asked him if General Flynn spoke with Ambassador Kislyak. And he said, no, of course he didn't, which is bullshit. Number one, because he was in no position to know who the fuck General Flynn was talking to. And as an incoming national security advisor, he was talking to a shit ton of people. That included everybody in the intelligence and law enforcement community, his peers around the world, ambassadors from all over the fucking place. And then, of course, it was announced that General Flynn had spoken with Ambassador Kislyak. No shit, Sherlock. But then, Vice President Pence lied about it. Now, if you really want to press the issue, it may sound like a lie, but ultimately, he didn't even know. His stupidity was not to say, I don't know, why don't you ask him? Do you really think that as I stand here in front of you, I know who everybody in the transition team is talking to at any given moment? Why are you even asking me this stupid question? So that is what Pence did. He fell into an ink shitter ambush. Does that make him a bad person? No. Does that make him stupid? No. Everybody has fallen into one of those at one time or another. If he had done it again and again and again, I would say he's stupid. But if you do it once, maybe twice, not really. It was used. It was blown out of proportion. And it was used after the fact to justify the actions of the FBI when they already had decided to go after Flynn on January fucking 5th in the Oval Office, long before Pence opened his mouth. How about that? Do I sound upset?
Well, I mean, that whole thing was one of those issues where everybody involved knew that there was no there, but they were going ahead anyway.
Yeah.
And, you know, at that time, you didn't have somebody like J.D. Vance who would rip the reporter a new one without any qualms whatsoever. And,
Yep.
you know, with his 500 horsepower brain, be able to pick apart whatever trap they were trying to set for him. And it's a different world now. Today is very different from 2016. It's almost 10 years, and the press doesn't have anywhere near the power it used to. It still does have power, but you know, the country's changed. The zeitgeist has changed, and I mean, it's fun. People like to pick on Elon Musk right now, but Musk buying of Twitter and changing Twitter that changed things. Like it was another of these tectonic changes that very few people are actually talking about in the way they should. And in 2016, conservatives really had no real place to go. We were being, well, you and I were thrown off of Twitter in 2018.
Yep.
For no reason.
Oh yeah, for a reason, because we were saying this shit in 2018.
Yeah. And
when we did, we put a target on our backs.
Yeah. No, and this whole idea that you're not allowed to say certain things. It's really funny now. Twitter really is a place of free speech to the point where people are using words that other people find intolerable. And, the answer to that is, well, don't read this person,
Block them.
Yeah. If you...
What bothers me in Twitter is not that, but the relentless influx of bots.
Yeah.
Relentless.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that it doesn't have to be that way.
That it what?
That it doesn't have to be that way. That it has a very simple solution. They don't fix it because they don't want to.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't actually spend that much time on Twitter, but it is definitely having an impact, considering it just how utterly retarded Twitter was back in the day when you and I were on it, and we had to be so we were getting suspended all the time, and
at least for the time being, we're not being suspended. And that's something, and we're doing this, and we're reaching more people by using our Twitter accounts to spread the message, so to speak. Michael says that that my number one choices are Hillary and Pencil Deck, but Sol is naming them all. My friend, I didn't name 10%. I didn't name Sally Yates or Susan Rice or that oh God, awful. What's her name? She was in the UN ambassador, Samantha Powers.
Oh yeah.
All of, or how about Grandmama Loretta Lynch?
Yep.
Who threatened that if Trump wins, there will be blood on the streets, and there was.
Yeah.
I mean, I could spend the next 3 hours just naming names out of my memory. This is way bigger than people think. It encompasses a lot more people than people think.
Well, it encompasses
some Republicans.
It encompasses almost the entire Democratic Party.
Yes. And I'm not talking about the ones that didn't intervene and just look how it happened. No. I'm talking about those who took an active participation in the scheme.
Yeah.
I'm talking about my rat list of journalists. People like Carol Lee or David Schmidt or Hirsch or Ignatius. I'm talking about real bad people who sold their soul to attack this country. And God, at least I want to shame them to the point that no newspaper will ever hire them again. Nobody's going to go to Guantanamo. Nobody's going to spend the night in jail. I don't care. Just put the dirty laundry in front of everybody for a little while and let the future assholes know that you're going to pay, that you're going to have to spend your money on lawyers. Movie Time Blue says, what about Strzok? I mentioned him. Mike Benz probably has a nearly complete list. I do. I don't know about him. And I've done it for a long time. Um, the 51 who said Hunter's laptop is Russian disinformation, those 51, for instance, have already had their security clearance revoked.
Yeah.
And that means they cannot peddle their wares. They cannot get thousands of dollars from think tanks in Washington to peddle their wares and their access to documents other people don't have. They're paying. They are paying. Now, John Brennan has to pay a shitload more than that.
Mm.
Because John Brennan's actions amount to treason. Not just propaganda, not just bad conduct. No, fucking treason. But anyway, Thomas.
Yes.
We've gone over the time again, so let me remind people. I'm sorry, I know that sometimes you're not too happy with rants, but sometimes I just can't hold it. I really want to go over there and beat slap the whole lot of them. And maybe one day we'll have the chance. Folks, before we depart, please remember quadverum.com/support us. Subscribe to @TheBrotherLie. We're not talking a shit ton of money, but every little bit helps to keep us on the air. And show the fuckers who banned us time and again. Remember when YouTube deleted my interview with General Flynn and suspended me for a month?
Yeah.
How many times were we demonetized in YouTube?
Well, I had to privatize all my videos because they were going back. They were going back. They gave me a strike for a video that I'd posted in 2018. They did that in like 2023. And then they did it. They gave me another strike for one that was from 2020. So I knew, okay, they're going through the videos to give me strikes to get me out of it. So I just privatized the entire channel, and that was that. And they left me alone. It's, I don't miss YouTube. It's pretty interesting. YouTube today, I mean, they recommend stuff to me that most of YouTube is not most. Too much of YouTube is AI. It's like the thumbnail is AI, the voice is AI, and the video is like fourth generation from like 10 other different content makers, and you can't see what's going on. And okay, a lot of channels sold, they were really popular, so they sold their channel to investment companies who replace the narrators with AI.
Yep.
And then the viewership drops immediately, and the people who thought they bought like $10,000 a week,
money maker. Yeah,
exactly. It's not doing it anymore.
Surprise! I would have told them.
No, I just I watch YouTube, but okay, I watch a lot of true crime stuff. I watch stuff about warfare. I watch some stuff about Syria and Gaza, but normally it's too much of a waste of time. I've stopped watching Ukraine the Russo-Ukraine war, because there's nothing much to say because they've been doing the same thing for a year and a half now. So people are making shit up, and
Oh yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Well, something that we'll discuss next week. But remember how Trump was going to give everything to Putin and fuck Zelensky?
Yeah.
Remember what we said?
We said exactly the opposite.
And at this very moment, I would like to say to all of these fucking assholes out there, O ye of little faith, who thought for even a split second that Trump was going to side with Putin, fuck you assholes, you should have known better. And for all the kabuki and all the theater and all the playing to the base and doing this and doing that, I never for a moment doubted that when push came to shove, we were going to arm Ukraine, and Ukraine is going to push Russia out of its territory.
The head of NATO said for the first time that there is a possibility for Ukraine to win militarily.
Yes, he did.
And Trump has said that he wants to give. He spoke to Zelensky and said, you need to start carrying out far more offensives. And he said, I need the weapons for that. And Trump said, sounds like a good idea. We'll send them to the Europeans, and the Europeans will give them to you. So,
but first he convinced the Europeans to up their defense spending to 5% of, because they're going to need a lot of money to buy so many weapons so that they can show them up Putin's ass. And it's done. And the world is shaping differently already.
Well, and as for Taiwan, people don't seem to be aware that we're replacing the entire Taiwanese tank fleet and the entire Taiwanese Air Force. The Taiwanese they've got their own version of an F-16 that is sold only to Taiwan, but we're also selling them F-35s, and we're replacing all their tanks with M1 Abrams. So, I don't know why people think the Chinese are going to just steamroll the Taiwanese.
The Chinese, the only thing the Chinese are going to do with steamrolls is a pork roll or an egg roll, steamed instead of fried. There's nothing the Chinese can do. And somebody says, will Ukraine eventually join NATO? Of course. Of course. They're already kind of like a junior partner, awaiting the moment they kick the Russians out of their land to fully join NATO. Of course. And of course that every country in the world is free to join the defensive alliance of their fucking choice without a neighbor having veto power over them. This entire nonsense that Ukraine's admission in NATO would offend Russia, well, that's their fucking problem. And I hope they're very offended by Sweden and Finland joining NATO finally.
Yeah, Putin, the giant brain, managed to
to double his border with NATO in one fell swoop.
Yeah, he managed to convince the Swedes, who've been neutral since the 1600s.
Yes, and the Finns.
And the Finns who said, we want no more trouble with anybody. And so the Russians said, if you even think about joining NATO, we're going to bomb you. And so they said, okay, I guess we got to join
NATO. And, you need Putin 2 more years in power, and Switzerland is going to join NATO.
There are rumblings that Switzerland might join NATO.
I'm telling you, at this rate, everybody and their fucking mothers. The Swaziland will join NATO.
Exactly.
Fucking morons. Deb, thinking this was a Trump point of negotiation with Putin. No, I told you so. He told you so. We told you so. What the fuck did you expect? And on that happy note, don't forget to send, to subscribe in uh, on X and to send a couple of bucks. And if you didn't already, uh, what is it? Not there. There. Don't forget to click on like, subscribe. Those are free. Damn, least you can do. And that's it. Thomas, do
Yes,
you have
sir.
a last word for us tonight?
Factious.
Factious. Oh
Factious.
boy, you mean like Mary Taylor Greene? Yeah, you know I'm right. Oh, she wanted to defund the Iron Dome. The woman was born in a very high mountain and fell head first to the valley below. And with that, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I hope you find it in your heart to support us, and we'll see you next week. Tomorrow, um, quad meet at 10:30 p.m. And I don't know. I'll let you know tomorrow. Tuesday, I'll be traveling, so I'm gonna have to move the VIP room. So I'll let you know tomorrow. Thank you so much, and everybody have a good night.